Welcome to The Explainer. So thrilled to have you here today. Look, if you're passionate about uncovering the hidden mechanics behind why companies succeed or fail, you are in the exact right place. Today, we're taking a fascinating journey into how companies evaluate themselves from the inside out. We're going to explore what our source material calls the internal environment.
Let me ask you something. Why do smart companies fail at strategy? Right? You'd probably think it's because of some unpredictable market shift or, a super aggressive competitor. But our sources reveal something pretty surprising. Looking inward, objectively analyzing your own company is actually this crazy complex psychological minefield. So often, failure actually comes from within, simply because leaders literally cannot see their own organization's true reflection.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our quick roadmap for today's explainer. First up, situation analysis. 2, decoding the internal environment. 3, we'll hit the internal bias trap. 4, tools for internal appraisal. 5, strategy implementation. And finally, number 6, a real-world Walmart reality check.
All right, Section 1, Situation Analysis. To really get a grip on the internal environment, we first need to put it into the larger context of what strategists call situation analysis. This is basically the foundational step in putting together any strategy. Think of it like the ultimate strategic matching game. You're taking what a firm can actually control on the inside, its resources, culture, capabilities, and you're matching that against all those totally uncontrollable opportunities or threats out there in the market. You simply cannot formulate a winning strategy without looking at both sides to achieve that perfect strategic fit.
Moving right along, Section 2, Decoding the Internal Environment.
I absolutely love this analogy from our sources, the mirror versus the window. It breaks down like this. The internal environment is the mirror. It's made up of variables within the organization that are, generally speaking, within the short-run control of top management. So, your strengths and your weaknesses. The external environment, on the other hand, is the window. That encompasses all those uncontrollable macro and micro forces, stuff like fluctuating interest rates, climate shifts, or new political regulations. Basically, you look out the window to spot threats and opportunities, but you look in the mirror to see what you actually have the power to change.
When we talk about strategic planning, there's a really clear split. On the macro external side, you've got forces management just can't control. The economy, new tech, legal issues, the whole shebang. But then on the internal side, you have the factors management can control. We're talking about organizational culture, the company's structure, human resources, and physical assets.
Let's dig into those specific internal factors just a bit more. These elements act as either the organizational immune system's greatest strengths or its most glaring vulnerabilities. We're looking at the management philosophy and the value system that guides decisions. Then there's human resources, and by that, I mean the actual skills and morale of the people, plus how employees interact with each other. It also covers intangible things like brand equity and corporate reputation, right alongside highly tangible physical assets, your plant, your machinery, and of course your financial standing. Every single one of these is controllable from the inside.
Which brings us to Section 3, the internal bias trap. Now here is where we hit a massive roadblock in strategy. When the folks inside an organization try to evaluate their own internal environment, they usually run straight into a psychological barrier called strategic myopia. They put on what we might playfully call corporate beer goggles. They just default to familiar perspectives. That's just the way we do things around here, and they lean heavily on old mental models. This creates a really dangerous willingness to just reject unfamiliar or negative information, which leads employees to wrongly assume that external competitors simply can't match their internal capabilities. No way, right? This crucial aha moment is captured perfectly in a quote from Moriarty in our source materials. Nothing is a strength or a weakness except vis-a-vis the competition. Think about that for a second. You cannot judge the strategic value of your internal resources in isolation. You always have to measure your internal reality against the external environment. Having a great company culture is really only a strategic advantage if it makes you faster or more innovative than the rival firm down the street.
Let's shift gears to Section 4, Tools for Internal Appraisal. So how do we overcome these internal biases? Managers rely on specific analytical frameworks. Internal environment analysis is a systematic progression. You don't just, sit down and make a random list of assets. Instead, you analyze your internal culture, which then helps you identify specific areas of expertise. That expertise then shines a spotlight on the firm's specific resources, which ultimately reveals the truly unique qualities and competitive advantages the organization actually brings to the table. It's like a giant puzzle coming together.
Two of the absolute best tools for this are the classic SWOT analysis and the IFAST table. Now, a SWOT analysis takes those internal strengths and weaknesses and directly matches them against external opportunities and threats. Simple enough, right? But the IFAS table, that stands for Internal Factor Analysis Summary, goes a step further. It forces managers to systematically categorize strengths and weaknesses, then objectively rate how management is actually responding to them. It even evaluates them using the VRIO framework to see if those strengths are truly valuable, rare, and difficult to imitate.
Next up, Section 5, Strategy Implementation.
Okay, so what happens after you've done all this brilliant objective analysis? Well, even the most insightful internal audit is completely useless if the strategy isn't actually put into action. Activating a plan requires aligning 5 absolutely crucial internal elements. First, people, confirming you've got the right knowledge and skills on board. Second, resources, making sure you have the time and the budget. Third, structure, delineating proper lines of authority. Fourth, systems, utilizing scorecards to actually track your milestones. And fifth, culture, creating an environment with really clear rewards. Oh, and a quick, very real warning from our sources here, the most frequent cause of implementation failure isn't a lack of budget, it's a lack of ownership. If nobody takes responsibility, the plan is going to fail, for sure.
Let's bring it all home with Section 6, the Walmart Reality Check.
Let's pull all this strategic theory out of the abstract and drop it right into the real world. Set the scene in your mind. It's early 2020. The ultimate uncontrollable external threat, the COVID-19 pandemic, just smashed into the macro environment. Walmart had to rely entirely on its internal immune system. They leaned super heavily into the factors they could control: their vast supply chain, their physical assets, and their strict, newly developed health protocols to protect both associates and customers. They rapidly aligned their internal environment to meet this absolutely massive external crisis.
And the result of all that? By proactively leveraging their internal strengths to adapt to an incredibly harsh external reality, the Walmart grocery app saw daily downloads surge by an astonishing 460% by April 2020. To top it off, their operating income increased by nearly 27%. They managed to achieve strategic fit in literally the most difficult circumstances imaginable.
Which brings us to our final thought for today. Look at your own organization through this lens of situation analysis. Are you seeing your company's internal environment clearly and objectively matching it against the outside world? Or are you perhaps walking around wearing those corporate beer goggles? Really think about it. I hope this explainer gave you a powerful new way to look in the corporate mirror. Keep learning, keep analyzing, and we'll see you next time.